thanks, our brothers and sisters, just for, again, tuning in here for this particular segment of the Upper Room of Zion on the URZ here on DSR. I'm Subship Radio on blogtalkradio.com. Again, I'm your brother, your Wyndham, Lidj, Yefdi, or Yefdeyah. And as per what we have, of course, scheduled here for this particular podcast and this episode of course, our presentations, our brothers and sisters, still a lot that we have to pack in here. So we'll, of course, try to move at a lively pace. So without further ado, we'd love to get right into our first presentation, which, of course, if ones, of course, haven't heard by now, I'm pretty sure it's, been all over the place as per much of the media, at least the mainstream media, as they would say. So I'm just seeing and checking certain facts and really seeking to get the most in-depth information that we could possibly find, especially which we will share in its fuller form, to our family, of course, to our Rastafari Foundation, of course. So hopefully ones and ones will get a read for themselves, and that's, of course, the Republican or GOP tax reform bill. This is something we had sought to touch on, especially since we had, from some times past, touched on the budget, of course, which had came out. Much of these reforms and referendums, all of these particular segments in this time which we are living in with this new administration, in which they have sought to bring about, that, of course, all plays into effect for this particular season of which we have this administration in at the White House or in at this political juncture. So still to present much of this, our brothers and sisters, we had sought to encourage ones to seek out as much information as they could and possibly can in this time, because so much of it is filled with such pertinent information that needs to be known. Though we know that it can be dry at certain times, and it really can't, at least keep our attention the way it should, in a certain sense, quote unquote. But it needs our attention at this moment, because these are the things, of course, which have played a heavy part in keeping us in the situation which we are in. Not only the things that are being put in place, but our unwillingness to actually search these things out. So it's a need that they be of high priority for us to check out. But even so, here we'll read just a few segments here from an article which we saw that we actually had, or at least allowed to come across our desk, that we saw fit to really share with the family so that they, of course, can partake in it as well. But even so, here, this article from Investopedia by one David Floyd, written just today, not too long ago this evening, but really had to share this one just to, lift the veil on certain things as far as bill, which is just passed, by the way. So here we begin. The Senate passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act early, Wednesday, December 20th, by a party line vote of 51 to 48. Senator John McCain, representative of Arizona, was absent for medical treatment. The House passed the bill later in the day by a vote of 224 to 201. No Democrats supported the bill, and 12 Republicans voted no, most of them representing California, New York, and New Jersey. Payers who itemize in these high-tax states are likely to be hurt by the legislation's cut to the state and local tax deduction. It was the House's second vote on the bill in a week. Having passed the legislation Tuesday, they were forced to amend it after the Senate parliamentarian struck down 3 of its provisions. These could not be passed under the fast-track reconciliation procedure Republicans used to avoid a Democratic filibuster, the parliamentarian ruled. And so continuing on here, our brothers and sisters, President Trump must now sign the bill into law. There is some question about when he will do so, since signing it before the end of the year could force companies to recalculate their income statements and balance sheets over the holidays. U.S. accounting rules require these documents to reflect new laws in the quarter they are signed, whether or not they've gone into effect. The overhaul is forecast to raise the federal deficit by hundreds of billions of dollars and perhaps as much as $2.0 trillion or $2 trillion over the coming decade. Estimates vary depending on assumptions about how much economic growth the law would spur, but no independent estimates follow Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin in predicting a net reduction to the national debt as a result of the overhaul. The bill cuts corporate tax rates permanently and individual tax rates temporarily. I want to re-emphasize that again because we actually will go into that a little after we finish this particular reading. The bill cuts corporate tax rates permanently and individual tax rates temporarily. It permanently removes the individual mandate, a key provision for the Affordable Care Act, or quote-unquote Obamacare, which is likely to raise insurance premiums and significantly reduce the number of people with coverage. The highest earners are expected to benefit most from the law, while the lowest earners may actually pay more in taxes once most individual tax provisions expire after 2000. The bill will retain the current structure of 7 individual income tax brackets, but in most cases, it would lower the rates. The top rate would fall from 39.6% to 37%, while the 33% bracket would fall to 32%, the 28% bracket to 24%, the 25% bracket to 22%, and the 15% bracket to 12%. The lowest bracket would remain at 10%, and the 35% bracket would also be unchanged. The income band that the new rates apply to would be lower compared to 2018 brackets under current law for the 5 highest brackets. The changes would be temporary, going into effect in 2018, expiring after 2025, as would be the case with most personal tax breaks included in the bill. The expiration date allows the Senate to comply with reconciliation rules that block a Democratic filibuster, which Republicans do not have the votes to defeat. Only if the bill does not raise the deficit in any year outside of a 10-year window, and if it stays within its $1.5 trillion budget constraint during the 10-year window. Republican congressional leaders have signaled that individual tax cuts would be extended at a later date. So just to say the least on this much of a write-up here from David Floyd, I won't read it in entirety. I'll leave much more of the research to our brothers and sisters, especially those here listening to me at this very moment. We do recognize and we have seen certain images, certain pictographs, or other charts and things of that nature that actually pertain to this specific tax reform bill. And of course, even as this article is inferring or implying, it's actually showing that not too much is changing. But even so, just to put it plain, as they say, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So one should, even so, just with that being said, they should still check out all of the particulars on this particular bill if they can find it in full. And usually searching out certain government entities, especially where the information has to be public record, and ones could find a way to save those documents or get them in print themselves. That would be most beneficial just for once to start the process of understanding this in full. But even so, just with what we had read, as one can see, as per the taxes that have been in this specific country, and maybe some other countries to a certain extent, some differences here and there, but specific to this country itself, there are 7 tax brackets. And for the most part, what this tax bill does, in conjunction with much of the health care reforms that were put into place from the last administration, it works in a certain way or tandem as per, we haven't actually personally ourselves read the entire tax reform bill in full, but even so from what the information which we are getting, it shows that still the 7 tax brackets, but they've been reduced in taxes by at least 2 to 3% for each bracket except for the lowest rungs. So the lowest rungs actually stay the same in certain instances. And with all that's being propagated, especially in the mainstream media and even from certain other ones as well, we still see that not too much has changed, even though it's been purported as such as, this great big reform. But mostly it's for ones who, of course, are operating in levels which are not the majority. But just to keep that in mind for certain ones, that's definitely much more research to keep in mind. And again, as we sought to emphasize that even so, with all of this being put into place, this tax reform bill is indeed temporary for individuals, but permanent, at least per what we see and what we are hearing and what is being put forward from this administration, is permanent for large corporations. And even so, just to zero in on that temporary status for individual taxes for certain ones, especially, just the everyday working people, that temporary status is within 10 years. It's a 10-year period for us. So they've placed that into effect, or at least hoping to place it into effect come the 1st of 2018. So all of this being said, much more research needs to be put into place. Ones really need to prepare themselves, of course, for much more of what is coming out of this administration, what they are seeking to put in place. And, as we go along with our presentations, ones will kind of get a grander picture, a much larger scale on this, because we intend to touch on much more that actually has its relations, not only to this tax bill, but to the entire international economy as a whole. So just dealing with that for a second, our brothers and sisters, we sought to bring that out for ones to really begin to pay attention to. And even so, we, make acknowledgement that indeed this administration has said that, or made the promises upon coming to office or before coming to office on the campaign trail, that they sought to put these certain entities or these certain entitlements into place, and they are definitely keeping to their word to a certain extent. Even with so much of the obstacles in place, it's still, what is being said is actually being carried out. So one should really take notice of that. Whether you are for or against, one should really pay attention to that on that scene. And that's really the focus in which we have, even so, just looking at this bill, whether it, is a hindrance or, an advantage to certain ones. But definitely something to take note of. Again, we really should make sure that we zero in on much more research for this, because this is very important. This is, mostly the foundation of this nation, in which has allowed it to reach the heights that it has been able to reach.